And hello again, and here we are back in my garage for part 2 of my new Kawasaki Z1000A1 project. And it's only been a few days since I made the first video, but in those few days I've been quite busy, been hitting eBay, I've been hitting various shops online, and I've been spending a lot of money. And in about an hour's time I've got a delivery due of the new front end, which hopefully will go on a new frame. And that front end is, for me anyway, something different. It's an upside down front end. In the past I've steered clear of those sort of modern forks because, well, two reasons. The first one is that modern sports bikes tend to have very steep steering head angles, which means that the forks are quite short in comparison to bikes from the 70s and 80s. So therefore, if you fit a modern USD front end to a typical 70s Kawasaki, it's about 2 or 3 inches too short, so it will drop the front end down quite a lot and you lose an awful lot of ground clearance. Now there are a few ways around that, one of which is to alter the internals of the fork to extend them, but that can get quite expensive and quite difficult, so we'll steer clear of that. The other way, which is something I've seen done quite a few times before, is to make, or have made, what's called a stepped top yoke. This is something where you take a big chunk of aluminium and you machine it such that the yoke is like this, it's like stepped, and that gives you the appropriate extension to the front end. And I know that Jeff has made a few of those, so I'll pop a photograph now of one he made some time ago, and yeah, it looks pretty good, but I didn't think that would be appropriate on my bike. And the second reason why I haven't yet fitted upside down forks on one of my project bikes is because it's always difficult to make the mounts for the front mudguard look right on an older bike. I know it's a small point, but if you look at bikes such as the, I don't know, Bonneville Thruxton, I always thought that the mounts for the mudguard didn't look quite right with that older style of bike. I'll put up a photograph now, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I think with these new forks I can just use the standard front mudguard, and with a bit of tweaking on the colours I think it'll look quite good, but we'll see. And so I bought a front end from one of these new sort of neo retro bikes, which hopefully will be the correct length to work with an old 70s frame. What won't be so easy is to make it fit the frame, because I'm damn sure that the bearings are different, the stem is a different length and maybe a different thickness. So I don't even know at the moment how easy it will be to make it fit the frame, but you know, it's all fun and games. Now when it comes to swing arm, it's quite interesting because normally of course you fit a twin shock swing arm to a twin shock frame. So in the case of my Mark II and 1170 behind me here, what I fitted is a swing arm from a Kawasaki Z1000A1 because they're very pretty, very cool looking, and they work really well. So I have taken a bit of a risk, and I have ordered a swing arm from a monoshock bike. And you think, why would you do that? Well, because I think it looks quite good, and because it's quite cheap as well. I mean, it's like rather than paying £300 for a ZRX swing arm, I'm paying £50. And even though it's monoshocked, I think it would be quite easy to convert it to a twin shock. We have to cut off the monoshock mounts and add twin shock mounts to the back of the swing arm, and that can be done. That's not too much of a difficult task. And what I'm trying to do, as I say, is make it look factory, and that means that the rear wheel and the brake and the swing arm all come from the same bike. That way it looks very integrated. I don't have to make special mounts for the brake caliper, I don't have to make spacers and modify, you know, bearings and so on to get everything to fit together. It's got to look like it works together, and it should do. So yeah, that's all happening at the moment. I've also been buying some parts for the engine, because right now I've got an empty set of cases and an old barrel, so I need everything. I need cranks, conrods, gearbox, clutch, head, everything. And I've been looking for the best I can find on eBay. I don't want to buy the cheapest, I want to find the best. So I bought a crank that's due this week. You'll probably recognise the front end and the wheels when they arrive, but we'll keep that secret for the time being. So we'll continue the video when those parts have arrived. Oh, and by the way, in case you were wondering what on earth this thing is that I'm holding in my hand, it's actually a directional microphone. This little furry thing is supposed to stop the wind noise, because these videos have been plagued recently with background noise from the wind outside or from the bird song outside. I can hear it now actually, so hopefully this will help solve that problem. My only problem now is going to be to edit the video so that the sound from this will work in sync with the video that I'm filming right now, so that'll be fun. Haven't done it before, but hopefully we can work out how it all works. And if you're watching this, I guess it worked because I got it to sync up. So anyway, we will continue with this video when more parts have arrived for the frame. And now here we are, it's a few hours later. I've got a cup of tea, and also I've got my parts which arrived not long ago. And Stuart, the chap who brought them over, he drove up 80 miles to get here because I think he wanted to have a day out with his partner, and they've gone off now shopping, so that's fine. So he brought me 2 boxes, and in this box here is a pair of monoblock calipers. Very nice calipers, look actually brand new almost. They're not brand new, but they look pretty damn nice to me. I mean, the pads here look absolutely new, pistons look fantastic, no problems at all with that. And as you can see, it's from a Kawasaki, so it makes sense to fit the same brand parts as for the frame and so on. So I've got those pair here, and so of course it's no surprise if I move that out of the way, the forks I bought are also from a Kawasaki, and they're down here on the floor. And so here's the box. As I say, I've just opened it but not really had a look inside yet because it's full of packaging. Not a lot of room here, but we'll do our best. Let's see what we can find. Well packaged, that's what we like to see, hopefully. So what we have here is hopefully a complete front end, bar the wheel of course, from a Kawasaki Z1000A1. The bike actually that I almost bought. I might buy one day, you never know. It even comes complete with ignition, barrel and a key, would you believe. And this is quite a nice bit of kit, hopefully. I didn't buy the cheapest one, I bought the best one I could find, and this looks absolutely mint, which is what I wanted. Right, I think I've got there in the end. It was actually very well wrapped. So there's the beautiful, it won't take some marks, but it's pretty damn close. Complete with mounts and the spindles, that's great. And now here we are, it's the next day, and this rather large parcel has just turned up. It's actually quite heavy, so I don't think it's the rear wheel, although it should be, but it feels far too heavy for that, so maybe it's got 2 things in it. This is from D&K, so I have been buying a lot of gear from these guys recently, so who knows. Let's get it open and see what's in here. We open like that. Ooh, yes, that's what we want. You can see all that. Yes. So what we got here is rather immaculate, I hope. Oh, yeah, I know. It feels so heavy because the damn tyre is still on there. That's right. It's actually a very good tyre set of that. Looks like brand new. I think this is my brand new bike because the tyre is still got its little nipples on it, so that indicates it's even got a sticker on there. So that is a brand new rear wheel and disc, and what looks like a brand new sprocket. You can see that, and that is actually immaculate, isn't it? That looks brand new, that, and it should be because I paid quite a lot of money for it. I'm now looking for an equally good front wheel to go with it. Now obviously if you know your bikes, this wheel is from a Kawasaki Z1000RS, a sort of neo-retro Kawasaki. I do like this wheel style, although before this arrived I was thinking of having the wheels powder coated gold, because I do like the new 2022 SE version of the bike, which has gold wheels, and I think that would work quite well with the rest of the bike. But looking at that, that is absolutely brand new. So yeah, I mean that looks absolutely brand new. God knows what bike came off, but I'm quite happy to buy that for £300. Now all I've got to do is find an equally good front wheel. And now here we are back in my garage. Another day and some more parcels have arrived, and the first parcel has this in it. This is a rear caliper and its mount from a Z900 RS. Looks pretty mint. That only cost me about £40 I think. Also quite cheap was this. This is the rear wheel spindle for the same bike, complete with adjuster blocks, and yeah, very light, and that only cost me £15, because I guess there's not much demand for such things. Quite a new bike, and I guess not many are being smashed up and broken up, so people don't really want them. In the same vein, I've got here in a new box a swing arm for the same bike, so that pivot bolt goes in here. That's great, but I do have a couple of issues, or potential issues, with this here swing arm. First of all, as I mentioned before, it's a monoshock swing arm, so you've got a mount here. I have to remove that, and also of course weld on the two mounts at the back so I can mount twin shocks. But that's pretty easy. What I've got to do now is work out if this is too long for the bike. So I've got an example here in front of me on my 1170 of the ZRX 1200 swing arm. I can measure that and compare it with this one, and if this is a lot longer, it could cause me problems in terms of the bike being too long in terms of the wheelbase. The handling might be a bit out, so that's what I've got to do. I've also got to measure, most importantly, the width of this mount here at the front compared to the width of the frame, because if that's a lot wider, it's going to be a heck of a job to try and get the swing arm to fit that frame. Now, we got around that problem with the 1170 by cutting the frame in half lengthways, and I don't want to do that again. It cost me about £500 in labour, and it took a long time. It was a huge amount of work. Admittedly, that included the bracing and strengthening on the frame as well, but it just was a bit of a nightmare, so I don't want to go down that route. So I've done some measuring already before I started filming, and it's not good news, I'm afraid. First of all, the length of this centre to centre in the middle of the adjustment there is 600 millimeters compared to only 560 mil on the ZRX 1200, and that's not too bad because I've got about 60 mil of adjustment in the rear wheel there, so that's not too bad at all. What is a problem, if I just turn over that bit of paper I just measured, is that the width of this swing arm here at the pivot point is 260 millimeters, whereas the width of the frame is only 235 mil. That's quite a difference. You know, it's about 25 mil or an inch. Now, we get round that problem with the ZRX swing arm, particularly on the Mark II, because the way the swing arm's made is the pivot points here come out quite a long way, and so you can machine them down and still have room for the appropriate bearings. But looking at this swing arm here, which I don't know if you can tell, but if I lift it up here, there's not a lot of room between the arms, the swing arm, and the ends of the bearings here. And I've checked it out, and I reckon at very most you could get back 7 or 8 millimeters if you were really careful, and then you're looking at problems of machining into the weld, which is not ideal. You'll weaken the swing arm. So sadly, good idea, but it doesn't work. And so that will have to go back in its box for the time being, and no doubt somebody might want to buy it off me in the future in 10 years time, who knows, or I'll give it away. So the hunt is on for another swing arm. So I'm not sure where to go yet. I need to give a bit more thought, find a really nice swing arm which has a suitable length and also has a design at the front here such that the arms come in quite a lot and these bearing houses come out a long way, giving me space to try and machine them down a bit, because I bet all modern bikes are this sort of length. So that's a bit of a blow, but never mind. You know, we expect these problems, and thankfully I didn't spend £300 to buy it. It was only £50, so I can't really argue with that. Let me get this box out of the way, and we'll talk about the other end of the bike, which of course is the upside down front forks, and how on earth can we get them to fit that old frame. So I have done my numbers. I've been doing some googling and checking and double checking. I've not got the paperwork here, but basically the bearings on the upside down forks are annular bearings, like modern bearings of course, and the size is 55 by that's right, 55 outer, 35 inner, 10mm thick, and there is no way on God's earth those bearings will fit in that frame, in the head. It just won't happen. No matter what I do, it won't happen. So I've been thinking about what we can do about it. The obvious solution is to change the stem in the forks, but as I've already mentioned, I don't want to do that because it will destroy the finish. It's quite a nice finish, like a sort of crinkly black, and God knows what that'll look like when you've machined it and ground it and removed the stem and put a new stem in and blah blah blah. It's going to be a right mess. I'll have to have it all redone, and I doubt I can ever get that original finish back the same as it is on the rest of the front end. So instead I turned my attention to the frame, and I was reminded of the way in which some Harleys hold their headstock bearings in place, because they have what's called bearing cups. I'll put the photograph now, and the way they work is that the headstock itself is just straight and it doesn't hold the bearings at all. What happens is these two chromed bearing cups are knocked into the headstock, a nice interference fit, and then the bearings fit into those cups. So I thought, oh, maybe we can make something like that, machine up some bearing cups in aluminium, and then, you know, knock them into the headstock. Only slight problem with that is that whole process will elongate and lengthen the height of the headstock by whatever 20-30 mil, and that's too much to fit these forks. So the alternative is a bit more radical. So let me move the camera and I'll try and explain what I'm thinking about. Anyway, let's imagine we take this frame to Jeff's and we put it on his miller if it fits, and we mill off the entire part of this flared out bearing cup here. Ditto down here. Now down here at the bottom it's a lot tricky because there's a support here, there's a brace here, it's part of the frame that's welded into the lower part of this headstock, and obviously you don't want to lose that because that adds an awful lot of useful strength. But I think we can probably cut it out and then re-weld it at some point when we've replaced these parts. So remove this, machine them nice and flat. Then what we do is we machine up two cups to suit the size of the bearings on this upside down fork. We then press them into place in here. Now what I don't know is, we know the stem itself is 35 mil, and I don't know how wide this is here. I'll have to measure it, because obviously if that's 35 mil and this is only say 40 mil, it means that the wall thickness of those cups is only going to be 2 mil, which is not enough. It'll move and probably break. So I need to do a bit more investigations. The other thing we could do is get really radical and cut this off completely. Now I know that's illegal basically, because you're sort of removing the ID of the frame. There's the frame number there, but we can machine up a new one, weld it back on and restamp the frame. It's not really illegal, it's just a modifying frame. I mean, this is 1977, so who knows what, or 78, so who knows what life it might have had in the past. Yeah, actually that's not too bad. I mean, you've got this little post here, which is part of the lock stops, which we'll have to remake. But yeah, I think that's doable. Not doable. And all the while, of course, we can't make this too long, because when I measured the stem length, they were pretty much the same. I mean, like 190 for both of them. So I think you know, we can't be making big tall cuts this thing. They've got to be almost the same length as these, which is okay. I mean, the you know, the bearings aren't that big, so I think we should be okay. They're only 10 mil, so that's probably about 10 mil. So I think we've got enough room there, but it isn't going to be easy. It is not going to be easy. What I hope will happen is that I'll take that idea to Jeff with the frame. He'll say, yeah, and then he'll come up with a much better idea, as he often does, and say, no, what about if we did it this way? And his way will be 10 times better than mine, a lot easier, a lot neater, and I'll say, yeah, go for that. But right now, yeah, we are hitting problems, which I expected. It's not the end of the world, and we'll continue to hit problems all the way through the build, I'm sure. So yeah, that's it so far. I think I'm now coming to the end of my big retail therapy, if you like, because I've spent well over £1,000 this week on various parts, and yeah, it's all getting quite expensive, as I expected. Now, oh, and one more thing, down here on the floor we've got the start of our engine. So we've got empty cases and a worn out block, but it's a start, it's a start. And for that engine build, one more parcel arrived today. Very big heavy parcel, all wrapped up, so I've not opened it yet, there's no point. It's going to go straight in the car and over to Jeff's workshop in the next few days. In that parcel is a used crank and conrods for that engine, and if it's as good as they say it is, it's warranted apparently, it may well be it doesn't need to be rebuilt, it doesn't need to be taken apart, pressed back together again and welded. It may well just be fine as it is, but I like Jeff to go through it with a fine tooth comb, check it for straightness and so on before we make that decision. But either way, at least it's a start. And so with the crankshaft bought, my next task is to find a really good cylinder head for the engine, along with a transmission, a clutch, you know, everything, all the starter motors, drives and so on. And they don't come up that often. I mean, they do, but often they're really tired parts, you know, really worn out. So it may be many months before we bring together all those parts. I can find an eBay and make a start on building the engine up. And that's okay, because this is a long-term project. I've still got to finish my 1170. I've still got to make a start on the Mark II and finish off the engine for the 650 and so on and so on. So this is not a project that will be done in the next few months. It's going to be very long-term. So it may well be that this part 2 video is the last one for quite a while I'm off buying parts, trying to find the appropriate swing arm and ways to fit those forks to this frame. But when we get something done, we'll continue with part 3. So anyway, it's been quite a long video so far, so we'll end it here. So thanks for watching and cheers.